Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is Tim Torok coming at you again, and today is Sunday, April 9th, 2017, and I have to report to you that yesterday my wife Stephanie and I went to a tour at Hale Farm and Village, and it was called A Fugitive's Path, Escape on the Underground Railroad. Now, this was a 90-minute play, and Stephanie and I were turned into slaves where we were sold into slavery and treated as such. Now, it was fairly graphic, and it was humiliating and degrading, because it started out where the gentleman explained the time. It was, I believe, April 8th, 1860. In the lead up to the Civil War, James Buchanan was the president of the United States, and states were starting to secede from the Union. And then, as he explained everything, he turned into a slave merchant with a top hat and everything. And then he released each row of people, and we were segregated into men and women in single file lines, and he shouted at us to get up, and the main thing was to always look down at all times and to always refrain from looking a white person into the eyes. So obviously that is humiliating. Now, I have to say that being forced to stand in one position with my eyes down at the ground for such a long period of time and remaining motionless did not feel good physically, and also mentally. But being called property. Now, there was no foul language, which was good. It was that was good. So yeah. Now I have to say that we were set free by the daughter of the slave owner who purchased the group. And so then we tried our hand at escaping. Now, the interesting thing is we were from Covington, Kentucky, was where we began. And then we were on our way to Cleveland, which was known as the city Hope, because that way you could escape across Lake Erie into Canada, which was known as Heaven, where blacks could be free. So a very difficult or troubling time in our nation's history. Now, I want to point out that the first guy who started the tour advised that today, in 2017, there are more slaves in the world than there were in 1860. So I have to be clear and say that slavery in any country is a despicable and inhumane act. I have always advocated for freedom of all people. Freedom is one of the best gifts that any government could give to its people. And wanting freedom for all people is a Christian act and principle. So, I have to say that when we began, as the guy shouted, probably just one time, he scared a young boy. He was probably 8 years old, and he started crying. So the tour was delayed briefly. And then a woman who was epileptic had a seizure on the tour. I am going to assume that the graphic nature of the tour caused her to become anxious and then brought on a seizure. So we were given counterfeit free papers and told that if we were ever stopped by a constable or authority figure, that we were to tell the constable that we were freed slaves of John Updike of Covington, Kentucky. And it's something that we had to keep repeating until we knew it well. And we got to a house, and the two women wanted to continue to allow us to be free and get to hope. The man wanted to sell at least several of the slaves back into slavery for profit, because there was obviously a profit motive, not only in the South but also in the North, due to the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850, as I was advised, to return slaves to their masters, unfortunately. And so the guy wanted to return us. Then a constable knocked on the door, and the guy sent the two women into a room, and he talked to the constable, and the constable said these papers are fraudulent. And so we were captured and sent back into slavery at the end of the tour. So, like I said, it was a 90-minute tour. We ended up being captured. And like I said, it was a traumatic experience, because just the feeling that I was somebody else's property and the whole group was somebody else's property kind of sends a shiver down your body, your whole mentality. And then, just on the drive up to Blue Ginger, actually, just thinking that, man, I was just a slave. It's a daunting notion. So I wanted to give a review of a fugitive's path, escape on the Underground Railroad from Hale Farm and Village. They had tours from 5:40 p.m. until 10 p.m. And Hale Farm has one coming up in November. I believe it's November 11th. So if you want to do it, check it out. It was worthwhile. 90 minutes, not suitable for kids, obviously. But yeah, I advocate for freedom. Slavery is a disgraceful and despicable institution that should be wiped out. So that's my review, and I hope you guys have a great day today, which is Sunday, April 9th, 2017.